little bit of rugby league. I don't think we need to go too deep into rugby league, but we do have a couple of big ideas floating around. The first thing was the Warriors signing Sam Healey, who is a hooker from the Cronulla Sharks. And he seems to have been signed because I think he's got a bit more attacking juice around the ruck. He's a more creative hooker than Freddie Lussick, and even the youngsters, Makai Tafua from Christchurch and Jacob Aotearoa from Auckland. I've got them as more crafty hookers who are really good defenders. Freddie Lussick is an awesome defender, but he doesn't have a burst of speed around the ruck, and I think the Warriors, as they have done with other positions, primarily the halves, they have identified a need, and they have been able to go to Australia to recruit for that need. So they have identified the need for a bit more creativity, a bit more zip and pizzazz, panache around the ruck. And so they went and got Sam Healey, who seems to be a dynamic attacking hooker. So you got Wade Egan, who doesn't necessarily have a burst of speed, but he is a very good attacking threat around the ruck. And now you've brought in Sam Healey from the Sharks to do that job as well. And this hits into a couple of themes. I did do a deep dive on the website about Warriors recruitment and development. One of the themes that I've noticed is the growing recruitment from the South Island, and I have found it funny, like there was mass anxiety, mass fear about the Warriors, or about how the Bulldogs had a partnership or have a partnership with Canterbury Rugby League, and that is all true. That is all happening. There's youngsters from Canterbury, Christchurch going to the Bulldogs. There's coaches from Christchurch going to the Bulldogs. At the same time, the Warriors have a lot of players in back-to-back National Secondary Schools champion team St. Thomas of Canterbury, and the coach, probably one of the best rugby league minds in Christchurch, Andrew Almatangi, he's been linked with the Warriors since like 2017. So like everyone can chill out about the fear and anxiety. I think the Warriors are doing a great job in the South Island. But another key trend, a key theme there is the Warriors recruiting from Australia. And because I was thinking like they signed Sam Healey, but I really like Makai Tafua, who's from Christchurch, as I said. And I really like Jacob Aotearoa as well. But like, so there's someone like Lennox Tuiloma, who I talked about a few weeks ago. He's from Christchurch. He's played in back-to-back. He's played in the back-to-back finals for St. Thomas of Canterbury, and he was also starting lock for the Warriors under-17 team who won the Harold Matthews Cup. That is a pipeline that has just been established. So that's the first wave of New Zealand youngsters who can grow up in New Zealand, play Harold Matthews, play SG Ball, play Jersey Flegg, as well as playing all the New Zealand representative tournaments, you know, South Island, Canterbury, all that stuff, against Auckland, against Counties Manukau, as well as the secondary schools tournament. So that's only going to strengthen the junior rugby league pathway in New Zealand. It already has. But there's still a bit of a gap. Where you look at someone like Sam Healey, he's played under 17s, he's played under 19s, he's played under 21s, he's played New South Wales Cup in Australia. And that's the same for Jet Cleary. That's the same for Luke Hansen, who's already with the Warriors. Like, they grew up and developed in that Australian pathway where you're playing the highest level of rugby league for your school, as well as the Harold Matthews, SG Ball, and Jersey Flegg stuff. And because I was like, they've signed Sam Healey, but I like Tafua, and I like Aotearoa. I even like Paul Roach. But the Warriors, I think they've identified that slow development process, And then like Makai Tafua, Jacob Auloa. Jacob Auloa played SG Ball, and then he played a bit of New South Wales Cup, primarily played Jersey Flegg. Makai Tafua played a bit of Jersey Flegg, but he played a lot of New South Wales Cup. And when you look at guys like Aotearoa, Jacob Laban, Zion Maiu, Dimitri Sifakula, they've all kind of been slowed down at the New South Wales Cup level. And I think that's just because the Warriors are developing them properly so they don't flame out, but they don't have that background of playing Harold Matthews Cup and going through that system. It's a bit of a deep cut. Like, I'm kind of going too deep into the mangroves here, but there are now, like Lennox Tuoloma now, he started this year playing against the best under-17s in New South Wales. That's something that Ali Leotawa never got to do. So it's kind of like now you can develop in that way, whereas before you couldn't. And I think the Warriors have identified that, and they are slowing the development down. You've got to play a lot of New South Wales Cup. Like, you've got to play 30 games of New South Wales Cup. Tanner Smith, he's 20 years old right now, and he's almost played 40 games in New South Wales Cup. So the Warriors are slow brewing the local talent, and then they're bringing in Australians. They have no issues recruiting from Australia. That's another interesting thing here. And Sam Healey, his father, Mitch Healey, played a lot of games for the Sharks. So you've got Jet Cleary. His dad is Ivan Cleary. And you've got Sam Healey. Shout out to Mitch Healey. So you've got two former NRL players who are confident enough in the New Zealand Warriors system to send their sons. Obviously, Sam Healey can kind of think for himself. He's an adult, 21 years old. But those fathers, those NRL fathers, they are advising their sons go to the Warriors, especially Ivan Cleary and Jet Cleary. If you know nothing about the NRL and the Warriors and you hear that, like, I don't know how you can be down on the Warriors system. Like, because what do the Storm do? They like sons of former NRL players. A lot of them go to the Storm. Remus Smith, Joe Chan, Jonah Pezzett, Tyron Wishart. They are all sons of NRL players, former NRL players. And if you know anything about rugby league, you're going to be like, the Storm want you, you're going to the Storm, because that's going to be the best place for your development. And the Warriors are not the Storm, but the Warriors are able to recruit from Australia. And in the case of Jet Cleary and Sam Healey, that move has been co-signed by fathers who know a lot about NRL systems. And I just find that interesting. But yeah, so the Warriors have signed a hooker. He's Australian. He's got that whole background in Australia, and it fits into some of these themes that I'm seeing with the Warriors, because they've identified the need for playmakers who have grown up in the Australian system, so they're a bit more advanced than the local lads. What does that look like? So it looks like Jet Cleary, Luke Hanson, Jesse Sorich, Talon Egan, and Jack Thompson, all moving from Australia to the Warriors. They've also identified the need for a bit more creativity and a bit more speed and flair around the ruck. So what do? Now, Aaron Clark is a Warriors player. I don't think he's going to play a lot of hooker, but he's fast for a middle forward, as we've talked about. What else do? They get a more attacking dummy half. Like, these are pretty obvious. Like, do you agree there? Like, the way I'm explaining it, these are pretty obvious holes that they have identified to fill.
Yeah, that seems to be the gauge from that picture there, is that like they have their systems in place. They're confident in those systems. They're not going to rush players through any quick. Like, there might be situations, I think we saw a few during the season just gone, where a player's called up from New South Wales Cup, or even, you know, just even players who haven't played that much New South Wales Cup. There's a couple of those dudes getting in there because the situation allowed, sort of conveniently, but they're not overly trying to rush those guys. They're not going to tell Leka Hallerstein or whoever that you're now you're in every NRL squad because he did all right in the first couple. Like he has his little stint when the window's open, then he goes back. But these the recruitments from Australia in particular, because I guess you can say those are recruitments from outside their system, really. Like there are other players that they'll sign from outside. There are Kiwi players they can sign from outside their system, but this, like for the sake of what we're talking about here, it seems like those ones are all very much about how do we fill a need for the not just for the NRL squad, but for the because you got to fill out each generation coming up so that you don't find yourself scrambling at the NRL level. You've got the next wave and the wave beyond that and the wave beyond that and your various age grades. So that's that's the impression I get, definitely, is that they're looking for very specific types of players that type of signing, that type of recruitment move is about trying to fill a gap in the squad one way or another, which just seems like an efficient way to go about things. Like you've got even just the fact that they can identify what those needs are tells you that they have everything else in order to be able to see that. Okay, well, we've got, there's a couple pieces of the jigsaw puzzle missing. Let's go out and find a blue bit of sky with a little cloud or whatever we need to put in this piece. But they're able to do that because things are just nicely set up until that point.
Yeah, I've got it. Like, I wrote this in the deep dive. Zion Mau's 21 years old and he's played 43 games in New South Wales Cup. Leka Halasima is 19 years old and he's played 30 games in New South Wales Cup. Laban is 22 years old and he's played 32 games in New South Wales Cup. So those dudes didn't play Harold Matthews. Some of them played SG Ball, but they are making up for that lack of kind of high quality Australian system by just grinding through week to week New South Wales Cup, because that's the most similar thing to the NRL. Like, you still need to travel to Australia for every second week. You still need to, diet, nutrition, recovery, mental fortitude, resilience, all that stuff needs to be evident in the week-to-week grind at New South Wales Cup. But those dudes,
senior footy.
It's senior footy against grown men. But those dudes didn't grow up playing against the best 17-year-olds in New South Wales, which is a big difference between the two pathways. But the key point is it's changing. Because someone like Lennox Tuiloma, he is now growing up as someone from Christchurch. He is growing up with the full pathway, which is very exciting. The best way I can portray the slow brew with the local juniors, though, is Tanner Stowers-Smith, another from Christchurch. He's 20 years old and he's played 36 games of New South Wales Cup. And assuming he stays with the Warriors for next season, because this is the murkiest time of rugby league, and I'll get that in a jiffy. Assuming he stays with the Warriors, he could make his debut at 21 or 22 years old with over 40 games of New South Wales Cup experience alongside James Fisher-Harris. Like, that just seems like the best kind of situation for a young forward. Now, this is a very murky time of the rugby league calendar. We don't know which kind of reserve graders or juniors are moving, who's staying. So you need to keep that in mind as we speculate. Like, I could say, yeah, I really love Makai Tafua, and the Warriors are just slow brewing his development because they've signed Sam Healey from Australia. But in 3 months, Makai Tafua might pop up at an Australian club. So you got to kind of chill out with that. But also, because I do want to talk a lot about the Kiwis and the Kiwi Ferns, but I also just want to wait and see who's named in the squads. And this is the murky time because we're all kind of preparing for International Rugby League, and yet there's a new injury every week. There's a new unavailability every week, let alone the eligibility stuff. So I've kind of done my brainstorming with the Kiwis mixes and those things, which I don't think they touch on every available player. It's just kind of a guide to the main players who will be used. And I'm just waiting and seeing at the moment. And this is the thing, all season long, everyone throws out these kind of fantasy lineups, like Samoa are going to have all these players, the Kiwis are going to have all these players, Tonga's going to have all these players. But the international window at the moment is at the end of the NRL season. And this is a brutal sport where if you're playing a full NRL season, it's going to be pretty tough to back up for international footy. So the players who do play international footy, we need to put them on a pedestal, because what they're doing is absolutely crazy. They're playing a full NRL season, and then they're showing up weeks later, or in the case of the losers, they're showing up a month later to play international rugby league. But also we need to just chill out and wait and see, because your fantasy lineups, your imagination going crazy about the combinations, like, it just probably won't happen. And that's where I'm at with the Kiwis. Like, I can say, oh, I'm really fascinated to see what the Jerome Hughes, Sean Johnson combo is going to be. Or, yeah, I'm fizzed up to see Jerome Hughes, Dylan Brown, or Jerome Hughes, Kieran Foran. Well, Foran's probably not going to play. Dylan Brown's out injured. And Sean Johnson, who knows what's going to happen there. Like, all that is wait and see. So the best thing for me to do with the Kiwis, my work is out there, so now it's just the wait and see moment. I will say the Kiwi Ferns, their halves situation's a little bit different to the Kiwis. Because the Kiwis now, they've got a kind of mix and match for the halves combination. But the Kiwi Ferns, again, assuming the players make it through the NRLW finals unscathed, Tyler King, Racine McGregor, Gail Broughton, and Ash Quinlan are all starting halves in the NRL. So you got 4 starting halves right there to choose from. The Kiwis, we're kind of in a category where it's like, okay, if it's not Jerome Hughes and Sean Johnson, then it might be Jerome Hughes, Dejan Arce. It might be Jerome Hughes, Chanel Harris-Tavita. It might be Jerome Hughes, Kaio Weeks. It might be Jerome Hughes, Shans Nickel Krukster. Like, there's just so many options, none of which feature a consistent starting half alongside Jerome Hughes. You know, it's just a very different situation, but that is to say the Kiwi Ferns have a fantastic group of players. And we do have NRLW finals coming up. Obviously, the NRL finals this week, Storm versus Roosters, Panthers versus Sharks. NRLW finals, we got Broncos versus Sharks, Roosters versus Knights, all of which are full of players from Aotearoa, specifically the Sharks. So I want to put a spotlight on the Sharks to finish our rugby league discussion, because the Sharks are in the finals of NRL, NRLW, and New South Wales Cup and Jersey Flegg. Sorry for a brain fart there. So the Sharks are in 4 different finals campaigns. Personally, I think the best NRL teams are the Storm and the Panthers. No surprises there. And I don't know if the Sharks are going to progress in the NRL finals. And I have no change in my opinion of the Sharks after their win against the Cowboys. Like, I kind of think that's a game they should win. And then they come up against the Panthers. That's a game they probably should lose. But the Sharks NRL team, you've got Britton Nikora, fantastic edge forward. He's going to be your Kiwis edge forward, assuming he's available. Kale Ido, we've talked about him before. He might be a Kiwis centre, but he's a pretty hearty Cook Islander, born and raised in the Cook Islands. One of the few NRL players who is born and raised in the Cook Islands. He did spend time in Auckland, though, as a Mount Albert junior. The Sharks, Ronaldo Mulitalo, he's from Aotearoa, Ellis the Eagles junior. The Cronulla Sharks woman, they've got Anessa Biddle at centre and Brooke Anderson, who's an Australian player who plays for the Kiwi Ferns, so shout out to her. Brooke Anderson's a lock forward in NRLW, but she is probably the best hooker available to the Kiwi Ferns. And Anessa Biddle's from Aotearoa. So you got Ronaldo Mulitalo, he's from Aotearoa, and Anessa Biddle is from Aotearoa. So nice little Aotearoa connection there for the Cronulla Sharks. If we get into New South Wales Cup, Braden Hamlin-Uele, he played for the Newtown Jets this weekend. They've got a grand final coming up, so curious to see if Hamlin-Uele plays NRL or New South Wales Cup. But he's there. The Jets also have Chris Viaila, who's a Waitemata junior. And he was initially recruited by the Newcastle Knights. But then the Sharks brought him down, and he's been playing for the Newtown Jets. Shout out to, and they've also got Mawene Hiroti, who is from New Plymouth. He's been in the Sharks system for a while. Fantastic clubman, just does any role the Sharks require. And so the Newtown Jets, who won their finals game last weekend, both centres are from Aotearoa. Chris Viaila and Mawene Hiroti. They've also got Jackson Ferris in the wider mix there. He is from Palmerston North, and he has also been in the Sharks system for a while. Just because I mentioned the Newcastle Knights, they did sign Francis Manu-Leilua from the Panthers. And the Knights have a massive Kiwi-NRL crew now boosted by Francis Manu-Leilua, who's a Papatoetoe junior, went to King's College, and I believe Peter O'Sullivan was working at the Warriors when Manu-Leilua was coming up through the Warriors before going to the Panthers. And Peter O'Sullivan, he was at the Dolphins, but he made a mid-season switch to go to the Knights. So he's known about Manu-Leilua for a long time. So no surprises that he recruited Manu-Leilua to the Knights, because what does Peter O'Sullivan love from Aotearoa? Or what does he love in general? He loves first 15 rugby in Aotearoa. The Dolphins, a lot of first 15 rugby players. And at the Knights now, he's got the Francis Manu-Leilua connection. Most of these first 15 players did play rugby league, though. Okay, so the Knights are also in the Jersey Flegg Grand Final. And this is where things are a little bit more funky for the Cronulla Sharks, because their under-21 Jersey Flegg lads are all big boppers. Salisi Ata from Otahuhu, he's the starting prop usually. And then they have Felix Fa'atili coming off the bench. He's from Christchurch, Hornby Jr. Haven't seen as much of Richie Tupuaile, also from Christchurch, also a Hornby Jr. He didn't play last week, and he's kind of been 18th man for a few games. But if you search Richie Tupuaile on YouTube or anywhere, there's a Rugby Pass clip of his first 15 highlights. I think he was playing for St. Thomas of Canterbury, actually, first 15. Let me make sure. Yes, yeah. So he was playing first 15 rugby union for St. Thomas of Canterbury, and now he's in the Sharks system. But St. Thomas of Canterbury are back-to-back rugby league champions in New Zealand. Richie Tupuaile's first 15 highlights from Rugby Pass are literally almost as impressive as Toby Crosby's. And that silence is for effect. But Richie Tupuaile hasn't played a whole lot for the Sharks. This was his first season in Cronulla, and he has had a few games for the Jersey Flegg team, but he's kind of been 18th man extended squad for most of the season. So I don't think we're going to see him play the grand final, but we should definitely have Salisi Ata and Felix Fa'atili. So we still got that Christchurch Hornby connection there with Fa'atili. And that is to say, the Cronulla Sharks, they're in NRL finals, NRLW finals, New South Wales Cup finals via the Newtown Jets, and Jersey Flegg under-21 finals. They're in all those finals, and they got Kiwis in all those teams. The NRL Ronaldo Mulitalo was already in Australia, so he's not directly from Aotearoa. Kale Iro, I think, had time with the Knights before going with the Sharks, so he's not directly from Aotearoa. Britton Nakora was in Queensland before going to the Sharks. So none of the NRL dudes are recruited directly from New Zealand. Anessa Biddle was recruited directly from New Zealand. Chris Viaila was from the Knights. And Felix Fa'atili was playing in Queensland before going down to the Sharks. So there's only a few of them who are recruited directly from New Zealand, specifically Anessa Biddle, Aotearoa, and maybe Richie Tupuaile as well. So there's a few Kiwi-NRL Wahine players throughout those finals teams, and it's interesting to see how they have got there. And the Sharks have a fantastic system, evident in Sam Healey now being recruited by the Warriors, but there's definitely more Kiwi-NRL juniors, and there's also someone like Jadika Tafua, the sister of Micaiah Tafua. She is in the Sharks New South Wales Women's Premiership team, and there's a lot of Kiwi-NRL juniors in the SG Ball ranks as well there for the Sharks. So little Kiwi-NRL spotlight on the Sharks there. Very successful club and organisation, but they also have a strong relationship with Aotearoa, and I think that's only increasing. They seem to be doing a lot of good recruitment from New Zealand, and in the case of someone like Richie Tupuaile, they are willing to go outside the rugby league window to get those players that they want, most of whom are either big boppers or they're really, really powerful. So that's a pretty good recruitment theme for the Cronulla Sharks. Also evident in Anessa Biddle. So their woman recruitment or their female recruitment's pretty similar to the men's recruitment, because Anessa Biddle is an absolute monster in post-contact meters. And I'll finish up here because we've got finals footy coming up in NRLW, which means the end of the regular season, which means Anessa Biddle finished first for post-contact meters, 741. Next best, Alexis Taueniai from Wellington, 705 post-contact meters. So the only players with over 700 post-contact meters in NRLW this season, they're both under the age of 23, and they're both from Aotearoa.